Yeah, I did, yeah.
Okay, I'll call the special meeting of council for May 25th, 2020 to order at 1 p.m. Let me get back here. So I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Moore that council adopt the agenda for the special meeting, so May 25th, as presented.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I'll make that motion.
Okay. Vote by consensus, so only speak if you're voting against. That is a yes from everybody, and motion is carried. And item number 3, ask for a motion from Councillor Masterman. The council adopt the minutes for the special meeting of council for May 11th, 2020, as presented.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I'll make that motion.
Okay. Via consensus. All in favor, carried. Kara, we spoke before. There were no public comments that I need to reiterate. So is that still the case, please, Kara?
Yes, that's still the case.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move right along into item number 5.1, being the property tax bylaw. Tacola.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Just to be sure, are you able to see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, good afternoon once again. I will be presenting the 2020 property tax bylaw. My presentation will quickly give you an overview of the property assessment overview. So the assessment, the highlights for the property tax assessment are 2019 assessment, which is based on 2020 tax year. Even though the assessment was 2019, but that forms the basis for our 2020 property tax. The property valuation was done by July 1st, 2019. And the physical condition of the properties were taken into consideration as at December 31st, 2019 for each of the properties within the town. Assessment notices were mailed to all the property owners on February 21st. We allowed 7 days for mailing of the assessment notice in line with the MGA. And the effective date of the notice was March 2nd, 2020. And there was initial 60 days property owners review period, which was slated for between March 2nd to May 1st, 2020. However, because of the COVID, the provincial government extended the due date for the review to July 1st, 2020 for all the municipal governments across Alberta. So the implication of that is that even though we still have review period opened, in my next slide, you will see what we've done. We've assumed some adjustment may come because we've now completed our initial 60 days and there has not been any significant review or changes. I will show you the number of changes we've had to date. So we are comfortable to proceed even with this bylaw. Within the first initial 60 days, we opened the inquiry period, the open house, which we allowed people to walk in and also to book appointments because of the COVID-19. Some of those open houses were held before the COVID issue came up. And subsequently, the discussion were always on email or phone calls, which has been, it really went very well. Sorry, I need to change that. So moving to my next slide, this is the summary of the assessment for 2020 tax year. In 2018, our total assessment base, taxable assessment base was 2,046. But however, in 2019, we went down significantly by about 2.2%. We went down to 2,002, which was about, we lost 44 million in terms of the assessment of the properties, which came to about 2.2. So for us to proceed with the bylaw, what we've done is to make allowance for possible changes of about 1 million. You will see that even though our assessment value as at 2019 was 2.02, but for this bylaw, we reduced it by 1 million assessment value to 2.001. And this is the summary of the assessment. 83% still represent residential and 17% for non-res. And this is the typical trend between 2018 and 2019 as well. So this is the overview of the typical community changes, not property by property, but by areas. And as you can see on this chart, most of the areas recorded reductions. All those in red, they are reduction in the average properties. In the Northwest, reduction of about 5.5%. High Country Estate, 5.2 reduction, and on like that. The only two sections of the town where we notice some increases in the assessment values are those people in the Southwest and the Northwest, where we had about 1.9% increase. And all other areas, as you can see, we recorded a reduction in the assessment values. And this is the summary of the taxable property assessment. For residential, 1.6 billion, non-res, 334, and overall, 2,001,592. And that is the assessment values for 2019. And based on our initial 67 days notice period from March to May 1st, we received overall 17 adjustments were made, 15 on residential, totaling a net change of 256,000. This net change is an increase on our initial assessment values, which was about 0.02%. And non-residential, we made changes to 2 of the inquiries, which overall it was a reduction of $510,000. And in total, 17 properties assessment were changed. And the overall was a net reduction of 256,000 on the initial assessment values. All in all inquiries received as at the end of May 1st was 116 inquiries. We have dealt with all the inquiries received to date. 17 inquiries, just like I highlighted in my previous slide, resulted into revisions, and 99 of those inquiries did not result into any changes. We were just able to explain rationale behind our assessment values. And this is the trend, the 5-year trend. And you can see slightly that in 2019 assessment, we went down by that 44 million from 2046 to 2,002. Is there any question on assessment before I go to property taxes?
Thanks, Cola.
Yes.
I do not have anybody with their hand up, so I think you can continue on.
Okay, thanks. So property taxes, as we know, the calculation is always based on the assessment times the tax rate. And that is how we arrive at a municipal tax levy. The assessment values of the properties multiplied by the tax rate. Of course, the tax rate is a function of the expenses required by the town, less any revenue from any other sources. So whatever is left is then we then divide it by the assessment value to get the tax rate. You will see the calculation as we move forward. So just to give you overview of the approved budget for 2020, which forms the basis for our initial calculation for the property tax. This was what Council approved on December 17, 2019, a net municipal tax revenue of 14.9 million, which accounted for about 46% of our revenue. These are other sources of revenues, which does not form part of our municipal tax revenue. Sales of goods, 10.8, grants, about 2 million, other revenues, about 5 million. So Council approved 32.7 million back in December. But however, because of the effect and challenges of COVID-19 on the residents of High River, on May 11th, we presented amended approved budget to Council, which was approved. And the highlight of change is mainly on the municipal tax revenue, where the tax revenue was reduced by about 613,000 just to assist the residents. So, and the municipal tax revenue then dropped from 46% to 45%. From my earlier slide, 14.9, but now we are looking at 14.3, 600,000 reduction to assist the taxpayers of High River. So what are the highlights of the 2020 property tax revenue then? Like I said in the previous slide, reduction of 613,000 in 2020 approved budget on tax revenue. And this completely eliminates the earlier 2.8% tax increase approved by Council in December. So with this reduction, then the 2.8% went to 0% tax increase for the town, which means the town will be generating same revenue for 2019 in 2020. So total municipal tax levy, like I said earlier, is now 14.3 as per the amended 2020 budget. And this is a revenue neutral approach, which means same tax revenue amount for the town with 2019 same amount of tax revenue. Even though we will still generate same level of tax revenue for 2020, we will still be able to transfer 3.5 million to various reserves as approved by Council in the 2020 approved budget. Municipal tax revenue split ratio remains 79 residential and 21% non-res. And this has been the same split ratio for 2019 as well. 2020 tax ratio between residential and non-res remains at 2019 level of ratio 1 to 1.3, which means non-res will be 30% higher than the residential. The education tax requisition amount is 5.7, 5.8 million. And these are the town has no control over the amount of requisition. And also to point at this stage that initially the provincial government advised us of 4% increase, but because of COVID, they reduced that back to slightly above what we paid in 2019. The increase was about 0.03%, which is almost 0% increase. And also in this bylaw, we use the lower of counties and towns tax rates for the annexed properties, which means all the annexed properties, we use the counties tax rates, which are lower than that of the town. So summary of 2020 overall taxes, the net municipal tax revenue remains 14.3, provincial education tax 5.7, seniors requisitions 247,000. The designated industrial properties, this is also provincial requisition as well, $1,200. Overall, we'll be generating 20.3 million as revenue for 2020, the total overall tax revenue. And this is the breakdown, just to show the trend. The municipal tax revenue for 2020 will be 14.309. And in 2019, we actually generated 14.420, which means we are even going down on municipal revenue line by about 100,000. And this is basically to cover the under levy of same amounts on education requisition for 2019. And the reason why we did this is to not to pass the impact to the taxpayer. Ordinarily, we're supposed to transfer this into the rate, but because the town has decided to support the taxpayers, and that is why the impact is coming from the municipal tax. We reduce the municipal tax revenue instead of increasing the main rate, just to assist the taxpayers. The seniors acquisition in 2020 will be about 248 against 249. Overall, this is to show the revenue neutral that I explained earlier. In 2020, we generate 20.3, similar to what we generated in 2019. So at this stage, before I move to another slide, just to for the purpose of the public, the revenue neutral strategy or approach does not mean same amount of property tax will be paid by the property owners based on their 2019, because property tax is a function of your assessment base. So some properties that the assessment went up, they will see some increase in their property tax, while majority that sees a reduction in their assessment, they will see reduction in their property taxes. But overall, for the town, it's going to be a neutral or zero tax increase. So this is the breakdown, residential, non-res, and the annexed property as well. In 2020, the tax rate we have proposed is 6.8. In 2019, for residential, 6.6. You will notice slight increase here simply because the assessment went down between 2019 and 2020. And that is why the tax rate went up for 2020. The same thing for non-res, 8.6. For 2020, 8.8. At the end, we'll be able to generate the tax revenue of 14.3 for the municipal tax portion. And this is the breakdown for the education tax levy. The same trend because of the assessment base as well. We'll be able to generate 5.7 as against 5.6 that we levied last year. But the entire 5.7 is what the province has requisition that we need to pay. And this is the 2020 seniors foundation levy. the same trend will be able to generate 247,000 against 246. So what is the impact on average residential home of this new 2020 tax rate? For those properties that experience a reduction in their assessment values, for instance, in 2019, the property that worth 350,000 in assessment, because of the 2.2, 2.5 reduction, it will now be around 340,000. And if that is the case, the total tax paid by this home or by this property in 2019 was 3,282. In this 2020, the same property will pay 3,268, a reduction, simply because the assessment went down. And example 2 is where the property assessment went up from 350,000. Let's assume the same 2.5, 2.2% increase is now 360,000 in 2020. This property will have paid 3,282 in 2019. The property will pay 3,460, an increase of 178 for the year. And example 3 is for non-res. The property worth 1 million assessment value in 2019. Because of the reduction in assessment value, it has reduced to 950,000. And this property paid 12,596 in 2019. In 2020, they will pay 12,474, which shows a reduction of about $122 for the year. So how is our tax dollar spent? And this is just to give the breakdown of how we spend $1 of our tax revenue. As you can see, 0.01 cents goes on waste and recycling, 22 cents goes on roads and streets, fire 11 cents, RCMP services 8 cents, on and on like that. The bulk of it is park and recs, where we spend 19 cents. General administration, we spend 31 cents. This is the end of my presentation, so I'm ready to take any of the questions you have.
Any questions from council? Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass, and thank you, Cola, for your presentation. I'm just getting a little bit confused here. Just for clarification, the tax levied is calculated by applying the tax rate against the individual property assessment, but is that the estimate of market value as of July 2019 or July 2020? Like when we're just trying to get my head around this.
Thanks, Councillor Macmillan. Yes, you are right. Not only you, almost everyone every year, they get confused. The assessment period is always based on the prior year. So the assessment is based on the value of the property as of July 2019.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And then I had another question just in our background information. I've never heard of opted out school boards before. What are those?
Sorry, say that again.
Well, there was this acronym it was page 14 of 22, and it's opted out school boards. And I didn't think there would be any school boards that could opt out.
Yeah, okay. That's the breakdown of the education levy. Based on the individual properties preference. Some people will prefer everything goes to the public school. Some people will opt out and say, oh, okay, to Catholic school and all that. So that's just the classification, but all of them ended up under education tax. There's no difference, nothing. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
Craig, you're muted.
I could talk for a long time and get nothing done, couldn't I? It's kind of standard. So I'll ask Councillor McMillan for a motion on first reading to bylaw 45752020 being a bylaw to authorize a property tax and establish property tax rates for the year 2020.
I'll give you that motion, Mayor.
By a consensus to the rest of council. Everyone is in favor. Motion carries. And I will ask for a motion from Councillor Cooley is not here, so we will go to motion from Councillor Kinghorn to provide second reading to the previously mentioned bylaw.
I will give you that motion, Mayor.
Thank you. By consensus, everyone in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. And this one will go to Councillor Nychuk for a motion that all council present give unanimous consent to proceed with third and final reading of the previously mentioned bylaw.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. By consensus. Everybody's good. And then we'll go to back to Councillor Moore for a motion giving third and final reading to the previously mentioned bylaw. You're muted, but I got it. Via consensus, everybody's okay. Motion carries. And the final one in regards to this, I don't know if you're speaking to anything on.
Yes, I'd like to speak briefly. But before I go into that, on the property tax bylaw, now that you've given us approval, we'll be able to print and send out the tax notices by June 1st. And what is going along with the tax notice is the newsletter to explain more details to the taxpayers. I just want to show you, just for 1 second, this is the sample of the 2020 tax letter that will go along with the tax notice by next week, just for council to see what it looks like. You will also get your own copy.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kola.
Thank you.
So resolution 40-2020. I will ask for a motion from Councillor Masterman that council authorize a 60-day extension of the payment due date to August 31st, 2020 for both municipal and education taxes for property owners not on the tax installment payment plan.
I'll make that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you. By consensus. Thank you very much. Carried. Property tax arrears public auction. Back to you, Kola.
Yes. Good afternoon, Council, once again. Due to the closure of the town hall to the public, as well as restrictions on number of people that are allowed by the province on any gathering, limited to about 15 people, it will be more appropriate for us to postpone the auction already slated for June 5. This is just to ensure fairness and transparency, because public auction is meant to be for the entire public, not 15 people or 20 people or 30 people. So it would be more appropriate for us to postpone it till a much later date within the year, just to enable us to abide with the provincial directive of the social distancing. We will review the situation once things come back to normal, and then we come back to council on a new proposed date for us to carry out the public auction. So that's the essence of this. Thanks.
Thank you. So we'll go with Councillor McMillan. Motion to authorize the postponement of the June 5th, 2020 property tax arrears public auction to a later date due to COVID-19 pandemic.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Voting by a consensus. Motion carries. And then to finish it off, there's just a couple of motions at the end here, proclaiming June 1st to 7th as Seniors Week. Is anybody speaking to this? Sorry, Michael, you got your hand up.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just back to if Cola's still there.
Sorry.
Considering the COVID situation, if we're unable in the foreseeable future to have a quote unquote traditional auction, can we start to talk and investigate about how we would handle this in a different format, whether it be virtually or something? There needs to be a way to handle it at some point. We just can't keep postponing it because there's COVID. So just some thought process into what we could do to manage that. Maybe the province is going to have some direction on that, because I'm sure we're not the only municipality that has to follow these MGA rules. So
yes, thank you. Absolutely, you are right. The province also issued a guideline on the postponement, and what they also recommended is to postpone till end of September. That across Alberta, that as effective from October 1st, we can go back to public auction. But going straight to your question, if the situation has not significantly improved on social distancing, of course, we need to look at other options. I agree with you. We'll still continue to work with the province so that we get a better option to carry out the auction. You are right.
thank you, Cola.
Thanks for flagging that.
Great point, Councillor Nychuk. Thank you. So we will go, Councillor Masterman, question?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I'm a little slow on the uptake, Mayor Snodgrass. I just wanted to go back a little bit with Cola. Cola, you were talking about in the assessments. I'm sorry, a couple of reports ago, and I wanted to start off by saying thank you very much for very complete reports and presenting them in such a way that that even I kind of understand them. So I really appreciate that. But back to the assessments, it was interesting to me that I think that you said there were 116 inquiries about assessments, and of those 17 resulted in a change. And I think that's really kind of encouraging from a resident standpoint, that there is a point in if you have a concern about your assessment, there definitely is value in appealing it or questioning it. And I guess my question, Cola, and I don't know if you're the right one to answer this, but I suspect you are. What types of things would have resulted in, without getting specific to anybody's appeals or anything, but what types of things would have been discovered on another review by the town?
Okay, yeah, thanks. Yes, I can answer that. Usually once we send out assessment notices to property owners, we expect them to review it. We have a breakdown as to what is the value of land, what is the value of improvements. So in some occasions, the property owners might come up that, oh, you said I've developed my basement, it's not fully developed, it's 60%. So what value did you put in on my development of my basement? Is it 60%? Is it 100%? So based on all that discussion, then we review it and we give them appropriate response. While some will come with example of their neighbors. Oh, my property is similar to my neighbor. My neighbor's assessment value is higher or lower than mine. Why are we not the same? So our assessor will then go into the details, sharing all the information with them. And at the end of the day, if we're able to defend our numbers, which you can see from the inquiries, we were able to defend almost 95%. So we'll be able to provide those numbers, exchange it, convince them why our number is what it is. So those are the typical questions that usually come up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Craig, you're on mute.
I tell you, we'll get there in a couple of years with this, hey? Touch my face, scratch my eyes, my nose if you're not careful. So, yeah, where are we? Seniors Week. Sarah, are you speaking to this at all, or Bruce? Do you want to speak to this? I'm just kidding.
I suppose I'm one of the few that are qualified, but the way you've been behaving,
Kind of my point.
Maybe you could be talking to this. But Seniors Week, great idea. You know, those of us who are lucky enough to get to that pinnacle in life, certainly worth celebrating and marking by the town. Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. And I just wanted to make mention that this is also the 60th anniversary for West Winds Communities. So that's quite a big deal as well.
Awesome. Okay, I will ask for a motion from Councillor Kinghorn that Council proclaim June 1st to 7th, 2020 as Seniors Week in High River, Alberta.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I'll give you that motion.
Thank you. By consensus, motion is carried. Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Kara, would you like to speak to that one for us, please?
Thank you so much. So we've received a request from a group for council to proclaim June 15th as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day in High River. So all the supporting documentation is attached to your agenda.
Excellent. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Nychuk that council proclaim June 15th, 2020 as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day in the town of High River.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll give you that motion.
Thank you. All in favor via consensus. Motion is carried. Any other questions or comments before we finish up? None. Meeting adjourned, 1:39 p.m. Thank you very much, everybody. Worked great.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Have a great day, everyone.